Welcome back, everyone, to the Starfighter podcast. It is your host, Dom. Tonight, we are, of course, going to be doing a review of the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 2. Spoilers ahead. Fair warning, guys. Spoilers ahead. But hope you are all doing good tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Give me just a moment to get the music going. Let me know how you guys are doing tonight. And you can already start going into the chat and tell me how you enjoyed this episode. Let's talk about it. But yeah, before we get into it, let me share screen and get the music going. Bear with me for 1 second. Here we go. Okay. Should be good. Should be good. Hopefully that's working. All right. Cool. Episode 2, Book of Boba. I'm already seeing a few messages. Let's get them. Today is Tuesday. I am really enjoying seeing Boba's story and his transition from vengeful mercenary to a man honoring his father. That is a great comment. Thanks so much, Tuesday, for joining us tonight. You're one of our amazing regulars here on the show. And yeah, I really like that comment a lot because I feel like it really just like kind of encapsulates the entire show and I think the essence of what we're getting. And I would like to talk a little bit more about this too because um I think I just find it really interesting here, and I've talked a little bit about, especially in last week's episode, how we we need to all as an audience adjust our mindset and adjust our thinking when it comes to the character of Boba Fett now. Because otherwise, I don't know if we're gonna like it. I say that because we've all kind of had, um, kind of a picture in our minds of who he really is because we always saw him a little bit in the background. He was always very mysterious, but we saw him one way, and he was the most, you know, um, as far as canon goes, we knew he was like the most notorious bounty hunter in the galaxy. But why? And and we do get to see that a little bit, and we saw glimpses of that in Mandalorian season 2. Um, but this show of Book of Boba, it's not a show about a bounty hunter, and he even says that in this episode, that he's not a bounty hunter. He is now a crime lord. So, I mean, I think I'll be talking a little bit about this, more and more as we go on with these reviews. But yeah, we have to kind of adjust our mindset and our view, because like Tuesday said, he's going from mercenary, from bounty hunter to a man who is honoring his father, who is also a bounty hunter, but his father was not without honor, and his father wasn't just a bounty hunter. That was so awesome in Mandalorian season 2, how they addressed that, and how Jango Fett was in fact an actual Mandalorian. He came from, you know, a certain clan, and so, and as we know, the Mandalorians, they are all about honor, and so for Boba to now have that um, same kind of code of honor too, it changes our perspective. It changes the dynamics of the show and of his character. So we have to really keep that in mind. But yeah, I totally agree. I'm really enjoying the show so far. Um, I think there's a couple little shaky stuff here and there, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but um, maybe not a lot of room, but there's room for improvement, I think, with most things. But I think it's off to a really good start for sure. and maybe we'll touch back on that comment again later, but we'll see how things go. Thanks so much for joining us, joining me tonight, guys. I appreciate it. Brent, what is up, man? He says I'm good. I liked it a lot. I'm glad to hear that, bro. And thanks for tuning in. Good to have you. And yeah, let's hear it. Um, let's get into the review, and then I'll touch back on some more comments here soon. But let's jump right in. So feel free to keep firing in the comments, guys. Let's get into a little bit of a breakdown. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and then we'll get back to the comments in just a minute. I want to know how you guys are enjoying this flashback thing. I talked about that in last week's episode, but it really reminds me of the CW Arrow show, and I mentioned this before, but like an episode, or I'm sorry, in the first two seasons of Arrow are actually pretty decent. But anyways, what Arrow does is it goes back and forth between its main character in present time to his flashbacks, and uh, they kind of end up kind of like colliding in the two timelines, and adding this these really cool elements um, of the storytelling. And so we're kind of getting something very similar to that here in Book of Boba Fett. And I think it's very unique as far as like no other Star Wars story or film show has done something like that and really utilized um you know the like having flashback scenes. No one We haven't really had that. So I think that's pretty cool for sure. There have been a couple little flashbacks here and there within Star Wars, but nothing to this extent. And it seems like it's going to play a big role. So I would like to hear what you guys think about that element. But of course, that's going to play into episode 2, which is Tribes of Tatooine. Um, but even before the flashback, we start out and we see this mercenary or assassin. He is from the Nightwind clan, and Fennec brings him. This is the guy that Fennec tracked down from the first episode, brings him before Boba Fett. What do you guys think of this opening scene? Um, he was acting like he's not going to say anything to them. He's not going to give them anything to work with, and they're already starting to like threaten him, shake him up a little bit. The Gamorrean guard's got his blade to his neck, doesn't phase him. It's whatever. Um, well, then, Fennec drops him through the ground and like threatens to use the Rancor, which I don't know. Did you guys Were you guys surprised that there was no Rancor? I don't think that we really should have been surprised, because obviously he died in episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Spoiler. Um, no, but I don't think it was much of a surprise. I guess there was just a little bit, of like a thought in the back of your mind, like, oh, you know, did they get a new Rancor? Like they could have. But this isn't too far from Return of the Jedi, so it makes sense that there wasn't one. Um, well, I don't know. Actually, I can't even say that it's not too far from Return of the Jedi. That's one thing that I hope they address soon. What is the actual timeline? We know it's between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. The same goes with The Mandalorian between episode 6 and episode 7. But for this in particular, it would be really helpful and I think important for us to know how long was he in the Sarlacc pit. And what's your guys' guesses? Let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. Let's get a couple of comments and then we'll keep going with this review. Shout out to Jake Hedge. He's been a little under the weather lately, and Definitely miss my bro. Hope to get him back on here soon. But he says, whoop whoop. I'm curious to see how they link the Tuscan Raiders story to what he's doing now. I hope his tribe doesn't die, but I can see him taking revenge for their deaths. Yeah, another really great comment that I think um, kind of like Tuesday's comment foreshadows more to come. I really think that there's a good chance that Boba Fett's going to experience more loss here. Obviously, we see in this episode he's still dealing with the loss of his father, um, even as an older man, and obviously it's so much tied to him as a character, and I think that rings true in regular life for all of us. We experience loss and we carry that, and it kind of shapes us into the person that we're going to be. So um, I think that's a really cool way of telling his story here. And yeah, I do think that there's a chance that they're going to lose more Tuscan Raiders if we stick to kind of that arc that they're using, and having us see more of that flashback with all of them with the tribe. I don't know if I need a whole lot more with the Tuscan Raiders, though, to be honest with you. But I do think, if I had to guess, I would say that we're probably going to see more with them, especially after the ending to this episode. But we'll get into that. But thanks so much for being here with us, Jake. I know you would prefer being on um, the actual stream with me, but we will get you on soon. Jake also says maybe that's why he's trying to take control and overthrow the guy on top to help them. Hmm. I'm a little confused, Jake. Let me know in the comments. Are you saying that that's its way of tying in the story with the flashback and the Raiders to now overthrowing things like overthrowing um like Jabba and Bib Fortuna, and like kind of becoming the crime lord and the leader um on Mos Espa? Are you saying that maybe that's how they tie together? I think that's what you're saying. Curious to know. Um, and then we'll get one more, and then we'll keep going. He says, by the way, that episode was major Dune vibes. Haha. Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, another shout out to Jake Hedge. Him and I, a couple weeks back, we did a review on the Dune movie. So if you guys want to go check that out, you can. It was on one of our regular live shows where we talk about a bunch of different topics, but that was one of them. And yeah, definitely got that. I mean, the obvious reason they spent a whole lot of time in the sand dunes, um, but there's other stuff too that kind of just certain shots, of course, um, just like the vibe of everything. It definitely reminded me of the Dune movie, and of course, it, George Lucas took inspiration from the original Dune, so it all completely makes sense. Completely makes sense. Anyways, let's get back to keep going with the messages, guys. Feel free. Let's keep going with the review, and then we'll get back to some comments. Um, all right, so you know that assassin, he gets thrown in there, and of course, there's no Rancor. So now Boba is like, all right, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go and find the mayor who apparently was the one who sent him, right? And I saw some other reviews commenting at like the middle point from that, and like the segue between where we get the assassin and him telling him that it's the mayor, and then actually going into the mayor's room or whatever. That one guy um, at the desk, like he is kind of lame. I know people have been commenting on that as well as like that one Twi'lek, he's the same one from the first episode, and I would agree too. It's just a little bit. I don't even know w- how to what's the right word I'm looking for. Um, it's just a little too over the top with like, oh, my apologies. Like it's just kind of lame and kind of annoying, really. Um, you get those characters every once in a while. But anyways, Boba's not having any of it. He's like basically step aside, get out of my way. I'm waiting for Boba to be even more aggressive than that and just like throw those guys out of the way because they're just like, so annoying and probably frustrating to him. But anyways, he goes and he finally meets with the mayor, and I thought this guy was pretty cool. What did you guys think? Um, I really I liked the energy and the vibe, and this is where our story is starting to take more shape to it, and like starting to we're starting to see really those gangster vibes, and just like elements of like a gangster or crime type story, and yeah, I thought he looked good. I thought as far as like the CGI or animatronics go, but then also the having him, speak in an alien um, language, but then having the voiceover for from the droid and having the subtitles, I thought that that was really good. I think it played really well, and I like stuff like that because I know a lot of people, and myself included. I think that's one thing about like the solo movie with the I don't know, that one lady, one weird lady at the beginning. How she just has she's an alien. She has this weird voice, like, but she's speaking English. Or in Star Wars we call it speaking basic. Um, why? Like we don't need that. We need to have more of these aliens, like these different creatures, speaking in different languages and kind of doing what we have here, having the subtitles. So it was cool, and like how they, of course, do with the huts, which we'll also get into that here in a minute. But the mayor is like, he's not. You think that I sent him? Well, check this out, and they just blast that guy like in the neck, just take him out, and so then you're like, okay, well, this isn't really adding up, and so he kind of gives him like I don't know some kind of clue as to finding, who's really behind it. So Boba goes and he which I don't think we're done. This isn't the last of the mayor. I don't think. Um and definitely which I think that we might see him in that one scene in the trailer where Boba talks to like a bunch of the gangsters. I think he's in that scene too. So we'll probably see him again. Um but anyways, Boba, he follows the clue, and I believe her name is it Jennifer Beal? I think that's who it is. The other Twi'lek, I believe that's the actress. But but we meet up with the Twi'lek again, and then you almost start to wonder if she's like behind this too, because she doesn't seem all that trustworthy either. Then of course the music starts to build up, and we start to hear something in the distance, and I thought that this was a great moment too, guys. Um, Again, we're really taking shape with our story here, and how this story in particular of Boba Fett stands out, um, as far as like I guess like subgenres go, having it be more of a gangster story, more of a crime boss type of show. And because now we're dealing with the Huts, and the Huts, of course, are gangsters. We meet the cousins of Jabba the Hutt, and they're saying how how it's their right, basically, kind of like their birthright. As far as like the lineage goes, like the Mos Espa like belongs to them, and they're the rightful rulers. But Boba's not budging. He's not budging. He's not going to step down. But I thought this scene was really great. Tell me what you guys think. I thought the CGI looked pretty good too. Of course, you can't beat the actual practical effects and the actual models. Like, doesn't look at they didn't look as good as like older Jabba, like the I guess we'll call him practical Jabba. um, but like the puppet or whatever, they didn't look as good as like the puppet, but it did the CGI definitely, and also of course, I mean it's a no-brainer because we're just more modern times here, but it definitely looked better than like how George redid some scenes, like that deleted scene of Han in episode 4, like stepping on Jabba's tail. CGI Jabba definitely looked better um, in this. And I thought it was just a really cool scene too. And I mean, they mean business. Yeah, it felt like they were cousins of Jabba, not just the way that they looked, but like the way that they talked and acted, um, especially the guy cousin. So yeah, I thought this was an awesome scene, and then we get to see um, this bounty hunter, which I did a little bit of research for this episode. I actually I haven't been doing enough research lately, so I apologize for that. But normally I do quite a bit of research for the reviews. Um, in comes this gladiator type looking Wookiee by the name of Black Chrysanthemum. And in the comics and in Star Wars canon today, this Wookiee is the most feared Wookiee and one of the most feared bounty hunters in canon today. He means business as well, and so I, for a lot of like fans who are keeping up with the comics, this is a really cool reveal to have him come in here to the show. But he looked awesome, and I think we were all kind of like hoping that we'd get to see some action with him. I think that they're saving that for later for sure. Let me get a couple comments and then we'll keep going. Let me see. Jake says, "I was a little upset they teased us and didn't have one of the Rancors." Um, yeah, it would have been cool to see one, and it's not to say that we won't see one later, because we still might for sure, but I think it kind of played into the humor too. Like, Fennec was kind of being a little bit silly, like, that she totally got this guy who was supposed to be like super tough and got him all scared, and then they didn't actually have one. So it kind of made sense. Brent says, that I'm glad they have the Huts back. I wish it was Jabba's son, but I don't know if he died or if he's dead or alive. Yeah, that's really interesting. I was thinking that it might be Jabba's son. Um, before I saw this episode, I was kind of speculating, will we see any Huts? Of course, in canon, and so like in the Clone Wars series and the Clone Wars movie in particular, we see that Jabba had a son. Maybe who knows? We don't know. We never really saw much after that as far as him being um, dead or alive. So who knows? But then also Jabba had a nephew, and his name was Zero, the Hutt. And if you saw, I can't remember if he was in the film, but he was in the Clone Wars series. I know that for sure. and he was a little bit annoying. He had a really high pitched voice, and it was just kind of not that high pitched voices are annoying, but it was just kind of squeaky, and just like the way he talked was annoying, and I think was meant to be annoying. Um, and also he just had kind of this yeah, that's just the perfect word. This annoying way about him, and a little bit cringy at times. Zero the Hutt was, but yeah. So I guess kind of surprised that it wasn't either the Sun or Zero, but at the same time, kind of a nice surprise to see that we get these two cousins and new characters to learn about. Jake says, yeah, so he's now going after the people that were in charge of the spice. By the way, the people that were in charge of the spice are the Pike Syndicate, and we also see the Pike Syndicate. We see them in the Clone Wars series, and of course, we also see them in Solo, the Solo movie. Going after the people that were in charge of the spice and whoever is running things so that he can liberate the raiders and give them more power, control, and freedom. Interesting. Interesting. I think that's possible. I think it's possible. Um, for me, and this is speculation. This is kind of my theory, but I think where they're going with this, if we rewind just a little bit from where we are in our review, rewind to the point where Jabba is bring where Jabba, not even Jabba, sorry, where the cousins, Jabba's cousins, um, are being brought into the people and into the town. I- If we rewind back to that point, and if you're watching that scene, you're seeing how how much respect they're given from the public, and so go back and watch that scene. It's really good and it's really interesting. The music and visuals, it it's done very well. But I felt like that was a very important scene, possibly the most possibly the most important scene in this episode, because I think that this foreshadows that Boba is here at point A and he needs to get to Z or whatever, the finish line. He needs to get from where he's at in this stage of being a ruler to getting to having that same respect, and yeah, maybe even fear. um and I think at the end of this series that we're probably going to see something more along those lines with Boba, maybe being kind of lifted again. Maybe he will, kind of like Fennec was saying, kind of like um just going about things the way that you're supposed to, I guess. And he wants to do things a little bit different, but some things you kind of need to, if you're going to be this crime boss, um, there's like kind of like just this natural path that you would take, and some decisions that would count, like just naturally you would make them. And I think that that scene just foreshadows where we're going to go with Boba and what we're going to get from him at the end of this series. So that's kind of my thoughts. But Jake also says that the CGI for them looked better for the Hutts. Totally. And then Jake also says, I did some research too. Introduced in 2015, I think him and Boba worked for Vader. They have a past. Oh, awesome. Very cool. Yeah, so he is talking about Black Chrysanthemum. That is the name again of the Wookiee bounty hunter. Yes, so very cool. So him and Boba have a past, and they worked for Vader. Very cool. Do you guys think that we might see a Vader flashback? I know that has been speculated a little bit. Um, I mentioned this too, and we'll kind of, we'll run through this second half of the review a little faster too. But I mentioned it in my last review of episode one that, yeah, this show has so much potential, even though it may not reach the same level of, you know, the same height and level that Mandalorian did, and being, so heavily regarded as such a great show. It may never get to that point, but it has so much potential to at least come close. And I think that a part of that is because it could do things like Mandalorian, uh, things that are unexpected. They could give us fan service, but it could be stuff that's done right. Fan service that serves fan service that serves a higher purpose, a bigger purpose, and that actually plays into the story. That actually makes sense for the timeline and the story at the end of the day. And so, maybe that is something with possibly seeing Han and Chewie later. Um, something like that. But yeah, whether you're tuning in live or watching on the replay, let me know what you guys think about some of these things, and give me your theories for sure too. But we'll get to the second part now of the episode. And to be honest with you, I did like the second half too, and like the stuff with the Tuscan Raiders, but I guess I'm not liking the flashbacks as much as what we'll call our present timeline. Um, I just I'm really curious to see more of the present timeline, and I think that might be it's not really a complaint of mine yet, at least, but it has been a complaint of other people, and I think it's understandable because it's what we mainly see from the trailers. Um, but I think that there's definitely a purpose in seeing these flashback scenes, and it just makes sense with the title of Book of Boba Fett. So, anyways, we cut back to the Tusken Raiders, of course, and they're dealing with this whole train situation. But as I mentioned last week, we get to episode two, and like I like we kind of, I guess, expected from last week. Um, Boba's earned their respect. He's kind of part of the tribe, essentially. He's part of the tribe now, and there's this mutual respect, kind of like working together now. And of course, this train comes in and takes out some of their people, and Boba's like, um, he's he's really motivated to go after them and to, I guess get revenge, and to avenge the people, the the raiders that were killed for no reason. Also, who's gonna avenge the all the banthas that took a blaster? You know, there's quite a handful of banthas that died for no reason too. That was kind of messed up. So yeah, again, we're seeing this element of storytelling where we've seen it before too. You think back to Mandalorian season 1, I think it was episode episode 3 or 3 or 4. Um but just like this hero's journey, but this thing that we've seen before where um the village people take, this our lost hero, or protagonist, and they both come to have a mutual respect. They both learn things like certain skills or qualities. They learn things from each other, right? And that helps the progression of of our main character. And so we've seen that a bunch of times, and that's kind of what this episode was. It was very much, you know, definitely reminded me of that episode, where Mandalorian, where Din Djarin meets up with that village and he helps them out. Him and Cara Dune help the village out, and being able to take down like the band of Imperials there, and kind of like free them from Imperial captivity. But anyways, getting back, that's where we're at here, um, on Tatooine, on the Dune Sea. And so, Boba's learning from them different skills, fighting techniques with the gaffy stick, and then, of course, now he wants to go and get vengeance, um, and that's kind of it, really. He goes, he grabs those speeders. Also, I did a little research on this too. That little cantina that we see. This is really interesting, guys. This is actually really interesting. So there's that guy and that girl there, um, sitting at the table, and I believe it's Trandoshan is what they call him. He goes and takes the guy's drink, right? Maybe some of their food or whatever. But this is really interesting. Um, the guy's name is Fixer, and the woman's name is Cammy. And in canon, Fixer and Cammy are both friends of Luke. And actually, Cammy was Luke Skywalker's, um it was like his crush. It was like who he really liked when he was um a young kid. And I believe even in like one of the recent comics, from the research that I did, Luke was even reminiscing about her even on his time on Octu. So really interesting there, for sure. Um, really great callback, and really cool when you get to find out some of these fun facts. So, anyways, Boba steals the speeders and he goes, takes them over to the camp, teaches the Tuscan Raiders. They all go, teaches them how to ride. They all go to take out the train. Pretty awesome scene for sure. Um, and it, for me, it made me think back to the Solo movie and that scene with the train and Solo, but I thought it was done really well. Um, the Pike Syndicate, they're really interesting to me. I didn't catch it like at first. I kind of didn't see until I guess the second time that I watched and like really paid attention, um, that it was in fact the Pike Syndicate. Because they were like hiding in the train a bunch of times, but yeah, super cool to see them again. Let me get a couple of messages and then we will start to wrap things up. Jake says, oh, I already got that one. I'm sorry. Jake says, that's so funny. I really like the present timeline, but I love seeing the Raiders and who they are. They were always such a mystery in the movies. That is very true. And it's a very good point as well, because, and we get a little more context with their with their backstory and their I guess, just the history of Tuscan Raiders, because, um, you know, I think a lot of us, definitely myself, thought of, thought really poorly of them because they're always, this weird, mindless group of creatures. Mindless is what I believe, um, Lars, Anakin's stepdad, calls them. Um, uh like mindless creatures and like cruel creatures. So always thought really poorly of them because they're always those creatures that killed, um you know beat up Anakin's mom, tortured her, and essentially killed her. And you know there were a couple of callbacks to Attack of the Clones in this episode, actually, and this was kind of one of them. But there, in this episode, they were saying that there are two different groups. There are essentially a group that are kind of mindless and just cruel, and then a group that's not, and they are, decent people, and they might seem scary, but a lot of that comes from them actually being scared of when um, they talked about how the sea was covered up by the sand, and all these machines started to take over, and of course they're not like up to date with using like these vehicles and stuff, which is that was kind of the purpose of part of this episode with Boba teaching them how to ride the speeders. But long story short, um, not all Tuscan Raiders are jerks, I guess, and just cruel people. So that was really interesting, and so yeah, great point there, for sure. And Jake says, I feel like the flashbacks are more about Boba and the present is more about the Star Wars universe and building. I really appreciate that one too. And like you're watching this series already, and it's great because it feels like Star Wars, and like it unfortunately, I'm not going to spend much time, and I don't want to badmouth um because people do like the sequels, and I do like some stuff about the sequels, but like this is Boba Fett, and like the Book of Boba and Mandalorian, so much different tone and feel, like, from each other. There's such a huge contrast with these two shows and with the sequels. There's such a huge contrast, and we talk about it all the time, but it's because we're getting way closer to what Star Wars is all about, what it stems from, what it was inspired by. And so yeah, I guess I'm just saying that I'm really digging it so far, and I think it's great that they're doing stuff that like they haven't done before, expanded on before, and I, I guess I feel like they're doing stuff that I feel like they've been too afraid to do. Um, so yeah, it's exciting for sure. So anyways, oh yeah, and Jake also caught that those were Luke's friends. Yep, very cool. So to close things out with this episode, they capture the Pikes, of course, um, and that they end up letting them go, but they also definitely send the message that, look, you're not gonna mess with us again, and also you're gonna be trespassing, um, next time, and yeah, really just showing them the authority that they have, uh, the Tuscan Raiders. So cool scene. Also, kind of weird that they were kind of it was kind of dumb to see like all the Tuscan Raiders pour out so much of that water on the ground. It's like you should go and bottle that up, like not let it all spill on the ground. That didn't make sense. But anyways, that they're not they're not the worst people, but they're also not the brightest. They're also not the brightest. Um, so that's basically it. The last thing here was, and maybe if you guys want to shed more light on this scene, or give any particular take or theories on the lizard that they give to Boba. It goes up his nose. It's supposed to help him kind of get back to the correct frame of mind, and I guess deal with his demons, right? His troubles, his fears. We get to see again. It- Really great scene. Also recreated CGI, but recreated um, with the actor. who plays little Boba in Attack of the Clones, but of course that scene where he's looking out the window in the rain on Camino and seeing um, his father Jango Fett take off, of course doing business or whatever, but um, you get to see some of these, and I heard, people kind of explaining it online as far as like the tree and the branches go. It kind of goes hand in hand with things that are kind of like um, restraining him or like holding him back from being free. It's like these fears again, like the demons that he's trying to deal with, um, are just like all these things that are like holding him back and are weighing him down, essentially. So so then he finally breaks free of that, and he's getting to like a better frame of mind, or like, yeah, just a better mindset, and kind of I think taking more control of his life, and I guess what he can do now at this point. So yeah, I think that was a really cool scene. And then also pretty cool him making the gaffy stick, and then it closes out with them doing like that tribal dance kind of around the fire, um, and really enjoying the music, of course. But that's how this episode closes out. If there's anything that I missed, let me know. um, yeah, definitely want to hear your guys' theories, or if there's any more Easter eggs that I missed, throw them in the comments, and I'll take a few more comments, and then we'll head out. But that pretty much does it for the most part. Thought it was a really solid episode. Jake Hedge says, "You won't say it, but I will. I wish this world was created before the sequels. The world that these shows have built are way better. They could go in any direction if this was the beginning. Oh well." Yeah, I mean, you know what? I think I would agree for the most part. Um, on the flip side, just to, I guess, give more perspective on it, and of course it shouldn't be like this, but part of it is this with, part of it is kind of this way with Disney. They're trying to correct things and mistakes after they've already made them, and it's not the right way to handle business. Then again, what do I know? I'm not as big as Disney, never will be. Um, but I, all I am is just a really big Star Wars fan. But it it's probably not the best way to go about business. I think we could probably all agree on that. But it is still possible to kind of fix or correct stuff, at least to an extent. And so I don't think that, you know, a lot of the mistakes or things that they kind of goofed up on, um, they won't really get better or be resolved from the sequels. But can you expand on some of those story arcs, on some of those characters? Um, can you expand on those and just like give them more context, build on them, and then start to take them off in a new direction? And I feel like, yes, you can, and I feel like that they've already started to a little bit in Mandalorian, um, and how, with Baby Yoda, with Grogu, and the blood, and of course that's probably tying into Snoke and Palpatine, and um, you know, like Jake said, it would probably work way better if these had come first. Um, but in a way, they can still make things flow a little bit better, um, with these shows, and kind of having them connect to the sequels. Ultimately, there's going to be times where they are going to connect stuff to the sequels for that reason. We are going to see that happen a little bit more here and there. Like, don't be surprised of that at all. But yeah, we'll see. And at the end of the day, I don't trust anyone else more than John and Dave to do that. I guess course correction or be able to expand on those on certain things with the sequels, expand on those in these shows, and have them kind of be elevated a little bit for um, the overall fan base. All right. Jake says, I was saying the same thing about the water. I was upset at them for wasting it all. Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Didn't make any sense. So, normally we've been kind of keeping these reviews about 30 minutes, but we went a little bit longer today because um, you guys had so many great comments and there's a lot to get into. And and yeah, it was really fun tonight, guys. Really appreciate it. And thanks so much for tuning in live, guys. And again, if you're tuning in on the replay, leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, hit the bell so that you're notified about more shows. But yeah, for the most part, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, we're doing shows, live shows here on the channel. And right now, we're, of course, doing Book of Boba. So we'll be back next week for episode 3. And Jake is saying bye. Yeah, have a good night. Have a good night, bro. Thanks so much. All right, guys. It has been a fun show. Thank you so much. Till next time, we're signing out here at the Starfighter Podcast.